Okay, guys, so today I have a very special guest on my channel. Actually, I watched his YouTube channel for years now, and the first time I already messaged you about it was the Vault series. I really love that series. I think there are lots of people that kind of grew up with it and came into bodybuilding and also, like more natural bodybuilding. And I even compare it when I thought about it today. Do you know Ronnie Coleman's DVDs?
Yes,
Like
of course.
just the style of it, you doing
That is
cardio, you're doing
awesome.
the training and stuff. So I really, it really motivated me, and not only because of workout reasons, but also because of motivation, dedication, do your stuff, have your goal, have your path and stuff. So I think you really inspired lots of thousands of bodybuilding fans outside there. So obviously you're Nick Wright. I knew you as Nick Wright Bodybuilding. I
Yeah,
think that's still up, right?
yeah, it's on my website actually.
Yeah. But for all those guys that actually don't know you, um, can you just describe yourself in a few sentences?
Competitive bodybuilder and a competitive powerlifter now. I do both, and I've basically just spent the last decade sharing my life and my competitive journey along the way. I think that's probably the shortest and sweetest way to put it.
Okay, yeah, that's I think that's enough. That's cool.
And for those unaware, I did turn it into like a livelihood as well. So I shared it via YouTube all those years back,
Yeah.
and we've grown to 250,000 subscribers and 1 million people on Facebook, and got some pretty cool opportunities and going on some pretty cool adventures throughout the way, and documented all of that as well. So it's
Yeah.
the competitive aspect as well as the lifestyle aspect, and just my full-time job now.
Yeah, I knew all your cellular stuff. I used to watch your videos a lot. You did like vlogs and stuff, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was a throwback to Cellucor days.
Yeah, that was that was really really cool, because it was not only joking, but it was also professionally. Like, you were also a business type, all the years, even
Yeah,
back then.
right.
So that was what I loved about it also. So it was not only bodybuilding; you could watch it because of other reasons too. So that was cool.
That's really cool
Um,
to hear.
yeah. So you were, for the people who don't know it, you were into natural bodybuilding. So no, on my channel, I mostly talk about like pro bodybuilding, which is obviously not natural at all.
Yeah.
Um, what's the thing you love or loved, and the one thing you hated about natural bodybuilding from your experience?
Well, the one thing I hated was the fact that you just lose so much size and fullness when you start dieting way down. And you can, of course, get full for like stage time, carb up. There's like tricks you do, obviously, to look as best you possibly can, sure. But it's very hard to maintain size, fullness, and strength when you're cutting down for a bodybuilding show. Totally natural. Versus when you're on even just like something like testosterone, it's not gonna make
Yeah.
you an IFBB pro, but even just something like that might allow you to at least hold on to some fullness, maintain a little bit more size, and definitely maintain a little bit more strength while you cut down. So that was probably my least favorite thing. You just end up looking like a string bean wearing any sort of clothing by the end of a prep.
Yeah.
The thing I loved most about it was just the fact that there was no stress as far as having to like spend extra money on drug protocol leading into a prep, and you didn't have to worry about getting blood work done at the end of prep and making sure your levels were all healthy, and like you didn't have to worry about that extra headache. You also didn't have to deal with coming off of anything either, because I have a lot of
Yeah.
friends that compete, and I watch them, and they'll get on a stack of stuff leading up to competition time, and then when they come off of it, it's miserable. I mean, you get a little depressed, you lose. Everyone tries to argue you don't lose your gains. You lose a little bit of your gains, especially when you start taking like the fast acting stuff, um, Anavar, stuff like that. Definitely if you're on trend, that's heavy hitting. So when they get off the heavy stuff, it's like they lose the fullness, they lose the pop, their veins go away, they become more sluggish in the gym. They don't feel as robust in the gym. It's kind of like a big mental adjustment. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's healthy to come off that stuff, but it doesn't seem pleasant. So
Yeah.
that was probably one of the benefits of doing it naturally. It's pretty carefree, and you just get better feeling after the competition ends.
Yeah. I actually knew a guy that, he was one time, he wasn't juice, and when he quit doing it, he actually, he lost the motivation to even go to the gym anymore, because he said that
Yeah,
the pump.
super common, super
It's
common.
like,
You feel weaker and you get kind of depressed coming off, your test levels are going back down. Yeah, super common.
yeah, it's like driving a Lamborghini and then switching to a little fucked up little car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So another question, which, I'm living in Germany, and people always, I think it's the same in the United States. When you hear about natural bodybuilding, the question always comes up: is natural bodybuilding really natural?
Mm-hmm.
So you know what I mean? Like, of course,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
with supplements, creatine, but no growth hormone, no insulin, no testosterone, and those stuff. Did you see or hear about like famous natural bodybuilders? You don't have to name anyone, of course, that actually like they take stuff, and how safe are the tests that you do at your contest? Because you were actually a competitive bodybuilder.
I've heard of I know one really well known IFBB pro who was competing in like the INBF back in the day, way back in the day, and then now he's top dog. I mean, everyone would know him now. And I want to say at this point, the fact that he was on stuff and then ended up getting caught for it, I think that's public knowledge. But just in case it's not, I'll keep his name quiet. But yeah, I'd hear like little stories here and there like that, but nothing dramatic. Like people are pretty good at keeping the secret. Sorry, that was the stock market closing. As far as is it legitimately natural? So I think nowadays it's becoming less and less legitimately natural because there's so much more information available on the internet as far as how to successfully manipulate tests and what drugs you can take that will get out of your system really fast for a drug test. But I think it's always been like any sport. I think like any sport, you're always going to have people sneaking stuff in there. So yeah, I think natural bodybuilding has always had people sneaking stuff in there. I do think federations like the INBF and the OCB do probably a better job than most as far as keeping it really natural. And just being at those shows, you can look around at a lot of the competitors and you can see that they're definitely genuinely natural. There's other federations that like Muscle Mania. Muscle Mania was plain natural. Their tests were not vigorous at all. And it was very obvious that a lot of people were on stuff. So I do think that federations like OCB and INBF do a much better job at clearing a lot of that out. But like any sport, man, you're going to get people that definitely sneak it in.
Yeah, I think that sounds.
The test. You asked about the test.
Yeah.
Back in my day when we competed in INBF and OCB, which was earlier 2000s, right up to like 2010-ish, they just did polygraph exams, so lie detector tests. And there's a reason they're not admissible in court because they don't determine if you're definitely lying or not. They basically just read your body's reaction to something. So, if you witnessed a murder or something like that and you mentioned that murder to you, it might draw up all these emotions and adrenaline, and it might change your body's reaction to that. And you might tell an honest truth about witnessing it, but the lie detector test might suddenly read that as your answer is different from the other ones now. So they're not the most accurate things in the world. I don't think they're the worst things in the world, though. People like really try to knock them and say they're a joke. I mean, the average Joe is not going to know how to beat a lie detector test. There are things you can take that will help your nerves, like beta blockers that can help. But I think like a lot of people don't know how to do that. So I think on average it probably did fine, especially at local level meets. But I mean, yeah, if you wanted to be thorough, you'd do like a urine test, blood test, things like that. But those cost a lot of money.
Yeah, I think like the lie detector test, lots of people make fun about it because I think, just as a bodybuilder, they're like more professional to lie about their steroid use,
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, not even speaking about bodybuilding, but if you remember like the Flex magazine and stuff, like they have like their protein tube and they just say, people think that they're big because of that. So, and they're like advertising that, and people, the average Joe thinks this and that. So I think like bodybuilders, they don't they are professional to say that they just take supplements or something. That's my experience, you know. For average, you know, for non-bodybuilding fans, obviously bodybuilding fans know what's up. So
yeah, and one of the tricks of beating a lie detector test I've heard is just believe your own lie, because then if you believe it, there's no reaction to it.
That's the thing.
So,
yeah.
that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, there was like do you know Andreas Münzer, that very ripped dude?
I'm horrible with names. I'd have to see what he looks like.
Like, that was a very famous German bodybuilder, and they did a documentary back then about him, and they asked
Andrei Lusukov?
No, Andreas Münzer.
Okay,
Manzera, how you call him in the States. Very ripped dude.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a documentary about him, and they asked him if he takes steroids, and he says that I don't take steroids. I don't take anything that's not which is prohibited. I don't take anything which is prohibited. And 2 years later, he died because of steroid abuse. So, and he was very professional saying that. You know what I mean? He didn't he was very terminated. Like, that's that's what I think that lots of bodybuilders, you know, can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And speaking about that competitive natural bodybuilding, just your opinion, do you think, like people talk about that all the time, Mike O'Hearn, do you think he's natural? No joke, just, you know, your opinion.
My opinion, I personally would be very, very skeptical about his natural claim.
Yeah.
I think that's the most polite way to word it without getting in any sort of slanderous trouble. But yeah, I don't. My personal opinion, I would question that very hard.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees on that one. So
yeah, I think that's pretty unanimous.
Yeah, especially at that age, you know, and that's just at that body fat levels.
He's just huge, man. I've seen him in person, and granted, he has phenomenal genetics. He has a great frame. He'd be a freak no matter what. But I've seen him in person, and the videos don't even do him justice. Like, his arms are IFBB Pro Olympia sized arms, because he's 6'5" or something like that.
Yeah, people have to remember that he's actually also very tall, and tall people generally, they don't look as buff as small dudes. And he's always ripped. That's what I heard. Always great.
Always ripped.
Do you know Skip LaCour?
Yeah, I know Skip LaCour. I've chatted with him a few times.
Do you think that he was natural back then?
See, that one I actually gave my opinion on once, and I thought that he was not. And then he actually called me about it after seeing the video, and we discussed it. And I mean, he claims he is, and who the hell knows? He could have phenomenal genetics, so it's not really my place to guess, I guess.
Yeah, I think, you know, when I was starting into weight training, I actually believed he was natural, or he is. Mm-hmm. But then seeing those pictures now, I don't think so anymore.
I was definitely skeptical, you know, and then he insisted he was, and whatever. I'll take the word for it until we see something otherwise. But I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. Speaking about that, what do you think is the most what physique is achievable naturally, but really at the max? You know, what's just your, maybe of people that you personally know and you believe that they're natural, what's the pinnacle, you know?
That's an interesting question, and a tough one, because people rule out the differences in genetics so much. Genetics are everything. So I've heard people say, me, when I was in my contest shape and I was still pretty strong recently in 2019, people said that I was maybe near the peak for a natty, and then everybody beyond that's a fake natty. But I don't think that's true at all, because I have very average genetics. I have average to low genetics for bodybuilding. I have average to decent genetics in powerlifting. So I'm not a good, I might be the ceiling of my genetics, but you take someone like Chris Jones or Russell or Heath. Those are both two people that I would say are definitely on something if I just saw them without any context. But knowing both of them personally and having watched them both personally, I actually believe that they are actually natural, because I think they have insane genetics. If you took someone like Ronnie Coleman, and you made him a natural from day one, but you still gave him the tools to train and eat 100% optimally, he would be a freak like that. He would look like he's not natural because he's just genetically.
For sure.
I mean, he would just look insane. So if you look at someone like a Chris Jones or a Russell Orhe, they are people that don't look like they're natural. But I actually believe for a number of reasons they are really natural, but they are just the pinnacle of top tier genetics.
Yeah.
So it's tough to call. For me, could I ever reach that naturally? What they look like? No. I'd have to get on a lot of stuff to get close to looking like Russell or Chris Jones. But that's me. That's my genetics.
Yeah. Actually, Chris Jones was actually one guy that I followed back then. Like, I think like both of your channel, I think very like at the same time. Actually, you know, that's one thing I think people neglect a lot, like the individual, you know, genetics, because I know people that don't even are into weightlifting, which are they're looking better than 99% of people that go to the gym.
Oh yeah.
But I think there are like other people like, you know, you were close with Boston Lloyd actually.
Yep.
I saw one of your videos together. Like for me, you know, I think he was like a dude that was like more on the steroid side, you know.
Oh yeah.
Like, and I was not agreeing on that. I mean, if it was like that, he would be on the Mr. Olympia stage.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's genetics. And like to add to that point even more, you said there's people that don't even train to look better than the average Joe.
Yeah.
That's a great example. Likewise, how you respond to steroids is going to be genetic as well. So you take me and you put me on a stack of testosterone and tren at the same exact time. You're going to see improvements. I'll be fuller. Shoulders will probably pop. My lips will definitely go up a little bit. I'll look better. I'll look like I've just been working my ass off in the gym with food and training, and maybe I got on like a light dose of test because my genetics sucks. I probably respond to it like you probably just see me and think, oh, he's on a little bit of test now. You give somebody with like Jay Cutler genetics that same stack of test and trend, that's almost all he needs to make it to Mr. Olympia. Yeah. It's crazy. Those Mr. Olympia guys and like the high end guys like that, they're definitely on stuff without a doubt. And they're on a stack of stuff, but they're not even on as much as like some of the top NPC guys are to make the pro card. It's just your genetics. So my only point is, as far as gauging who's natural and who's not, people will be surprised. I know people that are in the gym that look super average. I mean, small, not super strong. They just look fit. They look athletic and fit. And they're on stuff. They're either on SARMs or they're on a little bit of testosterone. You would have no clue. You'd swear they're natural. And then likewise, I know people that are never on anything and just look fucking phenomenal. And if they did take the smallest bit of something, they'd blow up because their genetics would just respond to it better. So it's an impossible question to ask to try to determine who's natty, who's not, what's the ceiling, what's the limit. Everyone's so different.
Yeah, I think that was one very interesting thing you mentioned. It's not only the genetics you have for bodybuilding in general, but also how your body responds to juice.
Yeah.
They're like people. I have a buddy and he's really very dedicated into bodybuilding. He had a decent physique. He looked very good. Now he's like on juice for like 1 year on test and he looks almost the same. If I would see that dude, you know, and I wouldn't know it that he's on testosterone, I would maybe ask him if he's on a creatine cycle, you know, because he looks a little tougher. Exactly. But nothing more.
Exactly. I know like 5 people that fit that description. Exactly.
And I had another buddy, you know, and he took a little bit of stuff and he like exploded. That's like, I think like Kevin Levrone, that's an example that, he reacts greatly to
insane genetics. He responds to food, everything, amazingly.
Yeah. Do you actually follow pro bodybuilding?
You know, I did all up until last year, and then I think since COVID kind of came around and I've been focused back on strength and business, I've actually fallen off from following it a lot. So I did see that Phil Heath. I did see the hype around Phil Heath and the whispering of his comeback and stuff, and but I haven't followed him close enough to have like a great opinion on him or to even know who else is in the lineup this year.
Yeah. Speaking about, you already mentioned it with the Phil Heath comeback. What do you think about Phil Heath's comeback? Do you think that he can be able to win it back because the lineup is maybe not that strong?
So, yeah, I think that'd be the first thing going for him is that bodybuilding in general is just kind of weak at this point in time. No disrespect to the guys competing, but it's just You're not dealing with like the year 2000 lineup where we had like Ronnie and Flex Wheeler and all those guys out there. So it is just a lot weaker, a lot softer. I believe Phil. So if Phil could just take some fucking criticism and try to improve on what he was told he needed to improve on, then I think he could be all right. But man, I remember when people were just trying to give him feedback on what went wrong at his last Olympia showing, and man, he was just arguing to all of it. It was like he had his ears covered. Like that man's ego is just insane. So I think if he can calm his ego down and come in, on point, then he'll be all right. I know he had the injury. With like the hernia surgery and stuff like that. So that's also a factor, and that factor may be a little bit out of his hands. So if that can stay in control, he can stay in control of injuries and stuff like that, and then come in on point. I could see him winning another Olympia just because the lineup's not what it was.
Yeah, I also think that if he can take, his gut under control, then it's possible.
Exactly, yeah. And I think some of that's going to come down to that hernia thing. So he did have that surgery. I know he used that as an excuse, but he did have that surgery. It could be a real factor. But yeah, get the gut in control. If the injuries and everything stays under control, then yeah, it's possible he could take it again.
Yeah, but I love that you mentioned, just by yourself, that he has a big ego,
Yeah.
And my opinion is that sadly, they're like pro bodybuilders. They get criticized based on their physique. So criticizing them is as natural as, drinking water for a normal dude. So it should be normal to criticize them. But I think that some of them, they can't take criticism, and Phil Heath is one of those guys. And he always, mocks like guys like Louis Marco, or also Nick Strength and Power. Just, I think just in one of the last videos, he mentioned him as the Nick Power dude, or Nick Power guy, if you saw it. They just make fun of those bloggers. They don't take them very seriously. But those bloggers like Nick, like they have like more follower than actually a Phil Heath on YouTube. You know what I mean? So
yeah. No, they're the voice, man. They're the media. It's like having the media, but the media is still going to be the voice that's heard. Phil, like I like Phil's physique, and I've been a fan of Phil. Like I followed him forever. And listen, like I have a loud, outgoing personality. I'm very confident, so I get called cocky and stuff like that all the time. So I'm very, very hesitant to ever call someone's ego big or fragile, because I understand, like, after a show, you're exhausted mentally. Criticism can add up. We're all humans. I give people a lot of breaks with that, and I give them the benefit of the doubt. And I understand sometimes people just say things and they mean it a certain way, and maybe it comes off more arrogant than they mean. So I gave Phil a huge benefit of the doubt forever, and I kept watching his interviews, watching his videos. But eventually, man, it's like even I had to like just throw in the towel and just admit the dude has a problem with his ego. It's insane. I mean, you heard him talk about these stories, like Arnold meeting him and Arnold shaking his hand, and Arnold looked and he knew, and it's like he just creates these things in his head. It's like it's insane. But then he can't take any criticism at all. It's insane.
Yeah, if you're a bodybuilder and you can't take criticism, then it's just you will always have problems with fans, And he's not the most liked, everybody. For example, I love his physique. At the peak, he had a great physique.
Oh yeah.
But his personality is like a whole different game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like Jay Cutler or Ronnie Coleman, which everybody loves. Actually, Phil Heath, lots of people hate him because of those issues.
Oh yeah, it's like a very narcissistic, like fragile ego.
Yeah.
Just being honest, that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, it's always just opinions.
Great physique, but the ego.
Great physique, yeah.
Yep.
Talking about like we switched like from natural bodybuilding a little more into like enhanced bodybuilding. Talking about that, you were a natural, competitive bodybuilder, right? And you did some, you did quite some contests. Did you ever think about getting enhanced, and why did you not do it?
Yeah, I thought about it a ton, and I think my biggest thing was I was more just like worried about kind of falling into like the mental addiction of wanting more and more and more and more. Like you taste a little bit, and then you go further and further and further. And then the other thing was like Dude, I've seen a lot of friends just like blow a lot of money, blow their health out over these preps, and I mean, for me, it's like if I had the genetics to go pro, and that was what I was going to do as my career, pro bodybuilder, maybe that would have been like worth the risk to me. But for me to compete at like a local level or a regional level or something like that, you know, regardless of the level, a level where you're not getting paid for it and you're not like making headlines for it like Mr. Olympia would, I just didn't see a whole need for it, honestly. That was my own. I'm not saying that's the right way to think or that's how everyone should think. You should do what you want in life, but that was my personal take on it. But yeah, of course, you're always weighing it out.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very sane opinion in an insane sport because, yeah, I think the same. If you're not having like extreme genetics where everybody thinks like you're jacked,
Mm-hmm.
you like Ronnie Coleman genetics and stuff. So I don't
Right.
think that you should do it also. But it's just a personal thing, right? So everybody can do it or not do it. But I think in the long run, your decision is probably better than, being on the juice. So, why actually like coming from bodybuilding, maybe a little more into powerlifting? Why did you actually switch from bodybuilding to powerlifting? Do you do like both things now, or
I
you
do
do
both
like?
now, and I competed in bodybuilding just last year, so I'm doing
Okay.
both. I'm still training the physique as well as strength. I legitimately do power building. Everyone says power building, but like I actually literally do both. Um, but why I stopped back, I did a 7-year hiatus on bodybuilding. So I competed from 15 years old all the way up until 21 years old. And then at that point, I got really burnt out. I think a lot of what happened was I started off really skinny and underweight. I'm tiny, 104 pounds, 11-inch arms in high school. And so I had this crazy bigorexia, like I just thought I could never be big enough. So like most of us, I became addicted and hooked on just trying to become as big as I possibly can. And I put like all my validation into my physique. And that fueled me to go headfirst into bodybuilding really well. But eventually what happened is like around early 20s, when I did start gaining size, that bigorexia, that complex started wearing off. And I started becoming more confident with myself as a human, like not worried if I looked 100% of the time, realizing people don't care about my physique as much as I do. Started basically becoming mentally healthy. And, but with that mental health, kind of started putting bodybuilding into a new perspective for me, competitive bodybuilding. Instead of looking at it like, yes, I love this, I live for this, it kind of turned into like, this is kind of an unhealthy chore that's really fucking up all my relationships in life. So at 21, I was on my way to my last show. Had a bad relationship split up go down during that, which the prep definitely didn't help. So that was like one strike against prep. I was like, these preps are just like not. It's hard to maintain a life and do these preps. But then on top of the biggest thing was, I just wasn't obsessed with competing anymore. I didn't have that drive anymore. I was comfortable with where I was physique wise, so I didn't feel that need for validation, and it kind of that fire went away. And then when you don't have that fire obsession for doing a bodybuilding prep, it is the most miserable thing you're going to do. You cannot go into a bodybuilding prep half into it. You have to be obsessed with it for it to work. So I kind of I wrapped up bodybuilding. I felt all set with it. I actually felt a little bit resentful toward it because I misplaced my blame for, bad relationships or just all the negative stuff I kind of blamed on bodybuilding, which was inaccurate to do. And then but I really miss doing some sort of non-subjective sport. Like bodybuilding is so subjective. You can be the best guy on stage, but if the judge is looking for something over here in left field, he might like the other guy better. So I was looking for something that was just like you had to go in, like any other sport, you had to go in, do something physical, and you either do it or you don't. And then I stumbled upon powerlifting from Johnny Candido's videos, and I was like, okay. I realized it was more than just fat guys doing 1-rep maxes with funny looking plates. I realized it was a technique sport, very technical. And I realized after all my years of bodybuilding, despite being pretty strong, I really didn't know the first thing about lifting. Most bodybuilders don't. So I fell in love with competing, and I wanted to get as strong as I humanly could. That was my biggest obsession, just strength. I wanted to get as strong as I possibly could. Strength has always been an obsession with me, even in my bodybuilding days. That's why I liked Ronnie Coleman, because I was so weak myself. So powerlifting took over, and then so I started competing in strictly powerlifting from 2014, which was 23 years old, all the way up until 2018, which was my 27th birthday, I think it was. And then, so I did that for those years. And then, but then the same thing happened with powerlifting, where I went all the way to the extreme. I was like, fuck bodybuilding. I'm going to get fat now. I got fluffy so I can move as much as possible. Totally not necessary, by the way. You can maintain a physique and get strong. But I did that, and I was just powerlifting. And what ended up happening is my video content got really boring. Views started going down. And I was just very one-dimensional. So I got sick of that. So to boost views back up in 2018, I decided to do a bodybuilding style cut for a photo shoot to get views back up. But I did it while still maintaining powerlifting training, and ended up being the best thing in the world because it really showed me true power building. I designed my lean strength program during that cut, and I still use that program to this day. And I ended up shredding down pretty lean, got a great physique popping for the first time in years. While still being strong as hell, I still deadlifted 600 pounds. I pause squatted 500 pounds, weighing like 170 pounds body weight. So it was really fun. That inspired me to do the following year to do a bodybuilding show, one last show. So I did Christian Guzman's summer shredding show. And man, best thing I ever did. I fell in love with bodybuilding all over again. I became obsessed with that prep. At first, the first few weeks, I hated it because in my head, it was just a business move. And then I was showing my girlfriend, Ariana, the posing trunks. She's been with me for 7 years, but she had never seen me bodybuild. Showed her the posing trunks. I was expecting her to make jokes about it. Instead, she was intrigued. She was like, wow, that looks so cool. What song are you going to do? Started asking all these questions. It was like a light bulb went off, and I started like focusing on all the old stuff I was obsessed with about competing. But it was a beautiful thing this time because I did this prep where I was obsessed with bodybuilding. I loved the whole process. I loved starving. I loved doing cardio 2 times a day. I loved everything about shredding down, posing practice. But I wasn't doing it from a place of a complex. I wasn't doing it to where it's my life. If I don't do well, I die. But I was still very obsessed with it. So it was a nice balance. It was a really nice balance. So for the first time ever in my life, I did this prep with a healthy mindset, coming from a healthy place psychologically, and I was loving it. So I did the show. I ended up getting a controversial second place. I won't complain. I'll take whatever my placing was. You can look at the comments below. Everyone's pretty unanimously said I got screwed over. That is the opinion of the comments. I'm not saying this. And I really don't care though, because honestly, like I brought the best package I've had to date. I looked awesome. I felt awesome, and it was the coolest experience. So now moving forward, that was my last bodybuilding show. That was my retirement show because I'm not in love with the lifestyle of competing anymore. But man, it was nice to rekindle that relationship with bodybuilding, get rid of all that animosity I wrongly held toward it, and just leave off on such an awesome note. And it definitely inspired me to keep a decent physique now. So now moving forward, I don't want to get fat again. I don't want to let my physique go to shit. I want to keep a good physique and stay building the physique while getting the strongest I possibly can at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. So you had your run back then in bodybuilding, and you did your comeback. So you did everything you could. So I think also the getting fat thing, that's a problem that lots of natural dudes have. Like after a diet, I also had that issue. You know, it's very hard to get in lean without, you know, gaining too much fat. That's like one of the most tough things in bodybuilding.
It is. That's I think some of it's mental looking back in hindsight, especially when you're newer to the strength side. You feel better when you're heavier. So I think people kind of think they need to be fatter to move more weight. And realistically, if you just stay patient, stuck to the program with the same discipline you stick to a diet, and just have some confidence, I think people would be surprised at how not fat they need to get to move weight.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, you know, you talk about the natural bodybuilding and the business moves and stuff, and I remember, if I'm right, like back then at your natural bodybuilding competitive days, like the main years, I would say, I think I heard about Sean Ray saying that you're one of the few guys that will make a living out of this sport. Do you remember that?
I didn't even know about that.
I don't, no joking. I think Sean said that on the MD forum. So talking about...
Was it Sean or was it Dave Palumbo? Because I
Yeah,
remember
I
Dave
think
Colombo gave me a nice compliment like that on the forums. He had no idea who I was. I was brought to his attention, and he checked out my stuff, and then he gave me a compliment. Kind of like that. Sean might have. If Sean Ray did, I missed it, but that is the coolest thing in the world.
yeah, I think yeah, it was either one of those dudes, but I think it was Sean. I don't know, but my thing was just, is it possible to make a living out of natural bodybuilding?
Well, it is if you think outside the box. If you don't have any sort of creative or business mind and you're just trying to step on stage and compete, you're not going to make any money that way. You can be the best natural bodybuilder in the world. You're not going to make any money. But I knew that going into it. I knew there wasn't a paycheck at the end of the day for natural bodybuilding, so I thought outside the box. So I started the YouTube channel. I started marketing myself. I got a following, and through that, I ended up making a living for myself. And I was able to quit the 9 to 5 life at 21 from that. So you could say inadvertently, I made a living off of natural bodybuilding. It wasn't directly off of competing and winning prizes at shows, but it was all based off of my competitive life. It was just I had to kind of think outside the box and do it in a roundabout way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think thinking about it, even in IFBB Pro bodybuilding, there are very few guys that can, maybe even no guy, that can make a living straight out of competitive bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Like all of them, they need to have like supplement sponsors. They need to have like merchandise. They put out their DVDs and
And even
sponsorship.
that's part of making a living because those sponsors pay good contracts. I mean, for the pro level, and I don't know what they're doing nowadays, but I know because things are getting so watered down and the internet's allowing companies to market now. But I know a few years back, I mean, if you're Mr. Olympia, you're getting at least a $500,000 contract annually from one supplement brand. And then you probably have a second sponsor that was like clothing related with a similar
Yeah.
contract and stuff like that. And same with what we do on social media. So you can make a good living there. Obviously, the sponsors are only as long as you're active. So it's temporary, but you can use that to then branch into your own business, whether it's, whatever, a clothing line or some business you want to start, you can use it to invest in that business, coaching even, whatever. But there's always ways to build up and branch.
Yeah, that's the good thing that like Jay Cutler did with their signature series. Ronnie Coleman did that.
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah.
Maroney did that. That's smart because
I love Jay. Jay was always good at that. He was my favorite back in the day. Ronnie was my favorite bodybuilder. Jay was my favorite for business. Way back before social media, he was hustling, and I love that.
yeah, me too. I love that. I remember him being in his garage, how you say it, with the t-shirts and stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool. He's in this big mansion. And he's got a fucking Rolls Royce, but he's still moving shirts off of his racks in the garage, just like I was. It was cool.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. That's why I think Jay will never be broke. He will always keep his money.
No, he even took his first initial big paydays and he invested in the real estate immediately when it was a good buying market. So I mean, he's making smart moves since day one.
Yeah, I think he probably got motivated by Chris Aceto because he did things like that.
Yeah,
so he probably had a good surrounding, also.
Sure.
But very smart dude. Yeah. Talking about that, maybe like one of the last ones. Who is your natural, like from every time span? Who's your natural favorite bodybuilder, and who's your not natural, favorite bodybuilder from all times?
Oh man, Jim Cordova or Cordova. Jim Cordova. Yeah. It's been that long. Wow. Yeah, Jim Cordova. Spell check on the last name. He was one of my all-time favorite naturals. I mean, he just had such insane genetics, and he was big in like the WNBF scene. WNBF is the pro federation of the INBF. So if you compete in the INBF, you go pro WNBF. I think he was WNBF. There's also the OCB and their pro federation. And I think he was a WNBF. But anyway, he was a natural pro. Dude just looked insane. He had such good genetics. And he's another one where you look at him and it'd be very reasonable to suspect that he was a fake natty. He looked insane. The WNBF is pretty damn strict on their testing, and they do testing randomly. It's not like the amateurs. At least they used to. And again, if you just look at his genetics, man, I'm inclined – I want to believe he's natural, and I'm inclined to believe he's natural because he was just insane. And then there was one more guy who I'm blanking on his name because I haven't said his name in like a decade, but he was a big dude. He was also in the WMBF, and I actually have a picture of him on my wall in my parents' basement back in the old home gym.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on his name right now. I wish I knew it. But yeah, Jim Cordova was definitely one of them. He was insane. Ryan Whitaker was probably my favorite as far as conditioning went. Not a big guy, but my God, did he get shredded. He would do these 35-week preps and just like YouTube Ryan Whitaker pre-contest posing, and you'll be blown away by the conditioning that guy brought in. So for natty boys, they'd probably be my favorite. For non-naturals and all-time ever, my favorite is Ronnie Coleman. I'm huge Ronnie Coleman fan, always have been. I still rewatch his DVDs even after all these years. And man, he was freaky. In my opinion, he had the best physique. I appreciate the arguments that maybe someone like Flex Wheeler had a better physique. It's apples and oranges. Flex had a more streamlined, classic physique look, and I respect that. But for me personally, because I was always so damn tiny as a kid, the mass monsters intrigued me the most. Ryan's round mass that was always shredded and crazy looking and strong as fuck and crazy work ethic. So he was my favorite. Finally got to train with him. That's on video on my channel. It's over 1 million views now. That was a few years ago now, but that was cool as hell. Jay Cutler is my second favorite. Favorite for business, without a doubt. I loved watching Jay. In fact, this last prep in 2019, I spent most of my cardio sessions watching old Jay Cutler DVDs instead of Ronnie Coleman DVDs. Because, man, I love his style. He just got down to work. He was so thorough, and I love his business sense. There's tons of physique-wise, man. Flex Wheeler is one of my favorites. Beautiful physique. Lee Priest is another huge one of my favorites. So I'm probably leaving someone out, but those are definitely like the top guys right there.
Yeah. I think like the Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman, when they had like their peak, I think it's just not comparable like to now.
I mean, there's nothing like it now. It's so sad.
I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding, and last year I visited an old friend to watch the Mr. Olympia, and it was not very exciting to watch it because there were not one single dude, like when you saw him, when he came out, that you were really shocked. And like Ronnie Coleman, like a crazy fucking guy, or like a Marcus Rule, like a mass monster.
I gotta tell you, I was, no disrespect to him, just as a fan of bodybuilding, I was really disappointed when Flexitron Roden won the Olympia. Not that I necessarily even thought anybody there was better than him. I mean, sure, like I think he deserved the win for the lineup because the lineups just aren't insane anymore. But like literally, because I appreciate the fact that they were going for a more streamlined classic physique look. I think that's cool, fine. But like Phil Heath, in my opinion, has a pretty good streamlined classic physique look with some freakiness added in. But like Flexitron Roden was like 265, I think, at a pretty decent height. I literally showed Ariana. Ariana's a good eye. She's been with me in this industry and traveled and met everyone. Ariana's met Jay Cutler with me. She's trained with Ronnie Coleman with me. So she's a good eye. I showed him, and I said, hey, this guy just won the NPC Nationals, Flexitron Roden. This is right after he won the Olympia. I showed him her picture. I said, this guy just won the Nationals. He just got his pro card. How do you think he'll do? And she looked. She goes, oh, that's pretty good. He'll probably do all right in the pro ranks. And then I said, he just won Olympia. And she was like, no way. He's Mr. Olympia?
Yeah.
He just, I mean, no disrespect. I'm sure he's a nice guy. And I'm not trying to knock him at all. Congrats. And I think he earned it. I don't think anyone looked better than him per se that year. But just as far as like the standards go, and again, maybe I'm biased. I like the mass monsters, and I could just be biased. But I thought he was very underwhelming for Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I think many people will agree on that. Also, like Brandon Curry, who won it last year, he looks good, but he's still like the legs and stuff. You can't compare like the legs of Jay Cutler or Ronnie Coleman. It's just they were freaks. It's just different ball game, I would say. Let's see.
Crazy that Brandon Curry won Mr. Olympia because I was following him since he won his pro card in 2008, I think, in men's nationals.
Yeah. He looked great.
I can't remember which one it was. I want to say it was men's nationals. I might have that wrong. But I remember he won his pro card in 2008, the year after Evan Santapani won his in nationals. So I've been following him since then. So to see him work all the way up to Mr. Olympia, so cool. It also shows you how long of a process it is. He won it in 2008, and then it took him almost a decade to reach Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, even more. So I think, yeah, let's see how things will develop. Yeah, it's even more. Yeah, let's see how this year's Olympia will be. I think people always look for something exciting, and Phil can maybe bring that back. I think I just went through all the questions I wrote. It was very spontaneously. We just decided like it a couple hours ago. I greatly enjoyed it, and I think people will definitely enjoy it. So, if you have like one last sentence or anything, even a topic, I don't know, you can just say it now, or what do you say?
I would say the first rule of success. This is the question I get all the time. It's either how to get a following on YouTube or
Yeah.
successful in training or competition, whatever. It all applies to the same thing. I'd say the biggest rule of success for anybody is to have a passion for something and then just dive into that passion. Don't wait until you think you're ready, because you'll never actually be ready. Just dive the fuck in. It's good to plan things out, but get started while you're planning out. Dive in. Don't wait. I was 15 years old when I first stepped on stage. I was not ready. I was tiny still. I was a joke. But I dove in, and it got me good stage experience for when I was competitive. And then, so dive in, stay passionate, and focus on the passion first. And that pertains to the social media thing exactly, because people ask, how do I get a follow on social media? If you're trying to post on social media just to get X amount of followers or make X amount of money, it's going to fizzle out. You're going to run out of ideas. Stay passionate. For me, I was passionate on bodybuilding. That's all I cared about. YouTube was secondary. It was just a way to share my passion with everybody else. And it ended up growing into something good. So it all comes back to the same. Be passionate, think outside the box, and dive in.
Yeah. So actually, what you say is, if you do it just for the money or the fame, you will never be extremely successful with it, because you don't have the passion to be at that level, right? So
Exactly. Yep. You have nothing that you're focusing on, so no one's going to have anything to focus on when they're watching you. It'll show in your content. I've seen it 1,000 times, and it fails every time.
yeah. Okay. Like one last question. You said that you trained with Ronnie Coleman, right? You remember probably like his DVDs, like he's screaming like all those sentences and stuff,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
with his head shake. You probably remember that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, that one. Does he do that on person, or was it just for the hell of it, for the DVDs and stuff? Did he
He
did
didn't do
that?
that in person. He didn't do that in person because when I trained with him, it was 6 months after his first hip surgery, and
Oh,
I was lucky because it was his first surgery, so he was still pretty big. Like now,
yeah,
obviously, he's been through like a dozen surgeries. It's a whole different thing. But at this point, he was still large. Like he still looked like a pro bodybuilder, and
yeah,
he was in pretty good shape still. But because of that, he was a little more subdued. He wasn't doing a crazy workout, so he was a lot more quiet during that. I don't think he did buddy stuff for the DVDs. I think it was like I think he really did it, but I think it was like
yeah,
an adrenaline thing for heavyweight, kind of like we all do. Let's
yeah,
go in heavyweight. So I just simply think in that particular workout, he just wasn't moving anything intense enough to warrant it. So sadly, we did not get to experience it in person, but we did get to chat with him for a long while about everything, which was cool.
yeah. I just love Ronnie Coleman. I think like I visited him like 2 years ago at the expo at the FIBO. You probably know the FIBO.
Yeah, huge expo. Yep.
Yeah, in Cologne. He was really, he had all those surgeries. He couldn't even walk. He was just
Yeah.
sitting there. He was very small. But I went to him and I said, Ronnie, when you're honest, like Phil was still the champs. I asked him, in your peak days, Ronnie, who would win, you or Phil Heath? And I really saw the smile in his eyes, like, and he was like, I would like, I would destroy Phil Heath, he said, and he was very happy after saying that. So
Oh, absolutely.
he's definitely extremely loving the sport. He's very into bodybuilding,
Yeah.
very passionate. So thank you for your time. It was very spontaneous. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I hope people will do it. So guys, just check out Nick Wright Bodybuilding. Like you're active there, right? On YouTube also?
Yep. Nick Wright is my channel on YouTube. I'm on Instagram, Nick Wright NWB. It's also my Twitter, and I'm on Facebook.
Great. So of course, also check out my channel. I will try to do more interviews like it. I hope people will do it because maybe of Corona and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like they have more time to do those kind of stuff. So check out my channel, subscribe to it. Have a nice day and see you soon.
Thank you.